The Grand Council Hall of the Galactic Confederation hummed with tension. Representatives from 37 species occupied the curved rows of seats, their voices rising in a cacophony of translated arguments. Holographic displays shimmered in the center of the hall, showing the latest devastation at the edges of Confederation space. Colonial outposts reduced to debris, defense stations cracked open like eggs, civilian transport vessels disappeared without trace. Captain Anya Sharma of Earth's Unified Defense Force stood at the back of the hall, arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold. She hadn't expected to be here. Military officers rarely ventured into the political arena of the Confederation, especially not human officers from Earth, the newest and arguably weakest member of the galactic community. But circumstances had changed when the Hekari Armada began its methodical advance through the Outer Rim sectors 3 months ago. "They're getting nowhere," muttered Admiral Costa beside her. The wizened Earth diplomat had seen too many council sessions to maintain optimism. "We need this Thar. Without their fleet supporting ours, the Hekari will reach Earth in 6 months." Anya nodded, her gaze drifting to this Thar delegation. They sat utterly still amid the commotion, their indigo skin and crystalline ridge crests catching the hall's ambient light. Unlike the other delegations that featured varied members and aides, the Thar sent only 3 representatives, 2 advisors and their military commander, Kalen Varis. Commander Varis sat between his advisors, face impassive, posture perfect. Anya had studied his record, one of the most accomplished fleet commanders in the Confederation, with a military lineage stretching back centuries. The Thar were an ancient warrior culture, renowned for their tactical brilliance, telepathic abilities, and unbreakable code of honor. They were also notoriously reluctant to form alliances, especially with emotional, unpredictable species. Like humans. "Captain Sharma," Admiral Costa whispered urgently. "The Council President is calling for a recess. The Thar delegation is heading to the Eastern Conference Chamber. This is our chance to approach them directly." Anya swallowed hard. "Sir, with all due respect, I'm a soldier, not a diplomat." "Shouldn't you? They respect military authority, Captain. And your combat record against the Hekari scout vessels last month has earned you recognition. They'll speak to you when they might dismiss me." Before she could protest further, Anya found herself following the Admiral through the crowded hall toward the eastern wing. Her palms were sweating inside her formal gloves. Earth's survival might depend on this conversation, and she had no training for it. The Eastern Conference Chamber was smaller and more austere than the main hall. The Thar delegation stood near the far wall, conversing in their native language, a series of clicks, hums, and subharmonics that the translation devices struggled to process. They fell silent as the humans entered. "Admiral Costa," said the Elder's Thar advisor, inclining his head slightly, "and Captain Sharma of the UDF Perseus Division. Your tactical maneuvers at Proxima Centauri were efficient." Anya straightened. From his Thar, this constituted high praise. "Thank you, Counselor Ulvren. I studied Thar fleet formations extensively during my training." This earned her a slightly deeper nod. The Admiral cleared his throat. "Counselors, Commander Varis, we must speak frankly. The Council's deliberations are moving too slowly. By the time they reach a consensus on joint action against the Hekari, half the Confederation could be lost. We have observed this inefficiency," said Commander Varis, speaking for the first time. His voice was deep, resonant, with the barest hint of a harmonic undertone. "It is why the Thar have traditionally avoided entanglements in Confederation politics. Yet the Hekari threat cannot be ignored," Anya said, stepping forward. "Our intelligence suggests they will target these Thar homeworlds after securing the human sectors. Separately, neither of us can withstand their full force. Together, we might." Commander Varis's pupilless silver eyes fixed on her. "Captain Sharma speaks truth. The High Command has reached similar conclusions." Anya felt a surge of hope, quickly tempered by caution. "Then you'll support a formal alliance between Earth and the Thar?" "The concept is logical," said Counselor Ulvren. "However, the execution presents difficulties. Humans have a documented history of breaking agreements when circumstances change. The Star do not. That's a diplomatic generalization, Admiral Costa bristled. It is statistical fact, Commander Varys corrected calmly. In the 83 Earth years since first contact with the Confederation, human governments have violated 27% of formal treaties within their first decade. The Star have not broken a sworn oath in 12 centuries. Different cultures, different values, Anya said carefully, but we're not asking for 12 centuries of commitment. Just enough to defeat the Hekari. The second Star advisor, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. The issue is not duration, but certainty. For an alliance of this magnitude, involving combined fleet operations and shared intelligence, absolute trust is essential. The Star cannot risk betrayal. Anya met his gaze. What would convince you of our commitment? The three Star exchanged glances, a subtle communion that suggested their limited telepathic abilities were in use. Then Commander Varys spoke. There is one method that would satisfy our need for certainty. It is rarely offered to non-Star, but these are unprecedented times. We're listening, said Admiral Costa. The mind meld ritual, said Counselor Overend. An ancient Star practice. It creates a permanent psychic bond between two individuals who represent their respective peoples. Through this bond, deception becomes impossible. Trust becomes absolute. A chill ran down Anya's spine. Belmano. The bond endures until death, Commander Varys confirmed. It would be performed before the full council, binding our peoples through us. I would serve as this Star representative. And who would be ours? Admiral Costa asked, though Anya already knew the answer. Commander Varys' silver eyes had never left her face. The ritual requires individuals of compatible psychic resonance and comparable authority. Our assessments indicate Captain Sharma is the only suitable human candidate currently serving in the Confederation. The air seemed to evaporate from Anya's lungs. What exactly does this bond entail? A sharing of minds, said Vren. Core emotions. Potent memories. In extreme situations, even physical sensations may transfer between bonded individuals. You would retain your autonomy, Captain, but never again complete privacy of thought. This is absurd, Admiral Costa stammered. Captain Sharma is a military officer, not a sacrificial lamb. Surely there are other ways. There are not, interrupted Commander Varys. Not that would satisfy our requirements for certainty. Not in the time frame required to mount an effective defense against the Hekari. Anya's mind raced through the implications. A permanent psychic bond with an alien commander she'd just met. Access to his thoughts, and he to hers. Military secrets, personal vulnerabilities, everything exposed. Yet if she refused, billions could die when the Hekari reached Earth. I need to consult with my government, she said finally. Of course, nodded Vren. However, be advised that we will present this option to the full council when sessions resume. It is the only basis upon which the Star will commit our forces to the defense of human worlds. 2 hours later, Anya stood before the full Galactic Council, heart hammering against her ribs. Emergency communications with Earth's Security Council had yielded a predictable response. Do whatever necessary to secure the alliance. Her personal reservations were noted, then summarily dismissed as insignificant against the backdrop of humanity's survival. Commander Varys stood 10 paces away, his expression unreadable as ever. Between them, in the center of the council floor, an ancient crystalline device had been placed on a pedestal, the focal point for the mind meld ritual. Representatives of the Confederation, intoned the council president, a willowy thraxi with gossamer wings that trembled with the gravity of the moment. We are gathered to witness a historic covenant. In response to the Hekari threat, the peoples of Earth and Star propose a formal military alliance, sealed through the sacred mind meld ritual. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Such a ritual had not been performed before the council in living memory. Captain Anya Sharma of Earth, continued the president, do you freely consent to bond your mind with Commander Kalen Varys of Star, to serve as the living embodiment of the alliance between your peoples? Anya felt the weight of Earth's future pressing down on her shoulders. She looked at Varys, searching for any hint of the personality she would soon be irrevocably connected to. His face remained a mask of composed dignity. "I do consent," she heard herself say, the words dropping like stones into a deep well. "Commander Kalen Varys of Star, do you freely consent to bond your mind with Captain Anya Sharma of Earth, to serve as the living embodiment of the alliance between your peoples?" "I do consent," said Varys, his voice without inflection. "Then approach the resonance crystal and place your hands upon it simultaneously." As Anya stepped forward, a wave of panic surged through her. What was she doing? Surrendering her mental privacy, her very sense of self, to an alien commander whose culture and values were fundamentally different from her own. For a fleeting moment, she considered turning and running from the hall, diplomatic consequences be damned. But she didn't. Her duty was clear, even if her heart was not. She reached the pedestal at the same moment as Commander Varys. The crystal between them pulsed with a soft blue light. "On the count of 3, said the council president. 1, 2, 3. They placed their hands on the crystal. Nothing happened for a moment. Then the crystal flared blindingly bright, and Anya felt as though her skull was being split open. Every nerve ending screamed in protest as alien energy coursed through her body. Through watering eyes, she saw Varys similarly rigid with pain, his normally composed features contorted. And then, abruptly, it stopped. The crystal dimmed. The pain vanished. But something new had taken its place, a presence in her mind, foreign yet somehow familiar, like a shadow at the edge of her consciousness. She could sense something, not thoughts exactly, but impressions, a rigid self-control, a deep well of duty, and beneath it all, a current of reluctance that mirrored her own. She was sensing Kalen Varys. The council hall erupted in a mixture of applause and astonished exclamations. The ritual had worked. The alliance was sealed. But as Anya stepped away from the pedestal, meeting Varys' silver eyes with newfound awareness of the consciousness behind them, one thought dominated her mind. What have I done? The days following the ritual passed in a blur of diplomatic functions, military planning sessions, and increasingly uncomfortable personal adjustments. Anya found herself quartered in the Confederation Embassy complex, in a suite across the hall from Commander Varys. Proximity, she learned, strengthened the bond, making the constant awareness of his presence in her mind more pronounced. She spent every spare moment researching the mind meld ritual, combing through the limited information available in the Confederation archives. What she discovered did nothing to ease her growing anxiety. The bond was indeed permanent. While it wasn't true telepathy, she couldn't read Varys' thoughts verbatim, nor he hers. It created an empathic bridge that transmitted emotional states and occasionally strong memories or sensations, especially during moments of stress or intense feeling. The bond would strengthen over time, and most alarmingly, no human had ever participated in such a ritual before. The long-term psychological effects were completely unknown. "You've made a terrible mistake," Anya told her reflection in the bathroom mirror, after waking from yet another nightmare in which she felt herself dissolving, her identity merging with Varys's until nothing of Anya Sharma remained. A soft knock at her door interrupted her brooding. She felt a pulse of formal intent through the bond before she even opened it. Commander Varys stood in the corridor, immaculate in his ceremonial armor. "Captain Sharma," he said with a slight inclination of his head, "we are scheduled to begin preliminary integration exercises for our command staffs in 30 minutes. "I'm aware of the schedule, Commander," she replied, more sharply than intended. A flicker of disapproval rippled through the bond, though Varys' expression remained neutral. "I sense your continued distress regarding our connection. It is distracting." Anya gritted her teeth. "Forgive me if my human emotions inconvenience you. They do not inconvenience me. They concern me." For the first time, a hint of genuine emotion colored his voice. A bond marred by fear and resentment will not serve its purpose effectively. "What did you expect?" Anya stepped back, allowing him to enter her quarters. No point in having this conversation in the hallway. That I'd be thrilled about having an alien presence in my head for the rest of my life? About losing any semblance of mental privacy? Varys followed her inside, the door sliding shut behind him. I expected a warrior's resolution. You made a choice to serve your people. Now you must honor it with conviction, not regret. Easy for you to say. Your people have a tradition of this. This mental invasion. Mine don't. It is not invasion, Varys said, a rare edge entering his voice. It is communion, a sacred trust. Anya laughed bitterly. Sacred? It was a political expedient, a way to force humans to prove their trustworthiness, because your people are too paranoid to take us at our word. She felt a sharp spike of something through the bond. Anger, perhaps, or wounded pride. But Varys maintained his composure. Your perception is incomplete, he said at last. The Star do not offer the mind meld lightly. I did not offer it lightly. Then why did you? Because the alternative was to watch billions die, including my own people, while our leaders debated and delayed. His silver eyes held hers steadily. The same reason you accepted. Anya had no response to that. It was true after all. We must make this work, Captain Sharma, Varys continued. Not just for our own comfort, but because the fate of two civilizations now depends on our ability to function as effective liaisons between our military forces. I know. Anya sighed, rubbing her temples. I know. I need time to adjust. Time is a luxury the Hecari will not grant us. Varys hesitated, then added, however, there are star meditation techniques that may assist you in managing the bond more comfortably. I could instruct you, if you wish. It was the first personal concession he had offered. Anya felt a small glimmer of something new through the bond. Concern, perhaps, or a tentative offer of understanding. I would appreciate that, she said finally. Good. We will begin tomorrow at dawn. He moved toward the door, then paused. And Captain, the bond reveals emotional truth, not explicit thoughts. Your fear of losing yourself is unfounded. The strongest minds create the strongest bonds, precisely because they maintain their distinctiveness. With that, he left, leaving Anya to ponder his words and the strange sensation that he had just attempted, in his own alien way, to offer comfort. The integration of Earth and Star military protocols proved every bit as challenging as Anya had anticipated. Cultural differences manifested in conflicting command structures, incompatible communication methods, and fundamentally different approaches to warfare. Earth's forces favored flexibility and independent initiative. Star doctrine emphasized precise coordination and unwavering adherence to strategic directives. Through it all, Anya and Varys served as the crucial bridge between the two systems. Their bond, despite Anya's continued misgivings, proved invaluable in diplomatic situations. Star officers who might have dismissed human suggestions accepted them when Varys indicated his support. Support often based on impressions received through the bond rather than Anya's explicit arguments. But political forces opposed to the alliance were not idle. The Galaxy Consortium, a coalition of mercantile worlds that had long benefited from playing Earth and the Star against each other in trade negotiations, viewed the new alliance with alarm. Their representatives in the Confederation began a whisper campaign, suggesting that humans could not be trusted with Star military secrets, regardless of ritual bonds. 2 weeks after the mind meld ritual, disaster struck. During a classified briefing on Star defense systems, detailed specifications for their planetary shield generators appeared on an unsecured Confederation network. The leak was quickly contained, but the damage was done. Suspicion immediately fell on the human delegation, and by extension, on Anya. This is absurd, Anya protested in an emergency meeting with Admiral Costa and the Star Council representatives. I would never compromise sensitive information. The bond itself should prove that. The bond reveals intent, not actions, said Counselor Olvren gravely. If you believed you were acting in Earth's best interests, you might have rationalized such a breach without registering it as betrayal. That's not how my mind works, Anya snapped. Besides, I didn't have access to those particular specifications. They weren't shared in any briefing I attended. Yet the leak originated from a terminal that logged your identification credentials, said the second counselor. The evidence is compelling. Commander Varys had remained silent throughout the exchange, his presence in Anya's mind unusually muted. Now he spoke. What does the bond tell you, counselors? Lovren frowned. You are closest to it, Commander. What does it tell you? Confusion, anger, indignation. Varys' silver eyes met Anya's. But not guilt, not deception. Emotions can be misinterpreted, argued the second counselor, even by those experienced with the bond. Nevertheless, said Varys, I do not believe Captain Sharma is responsible for this breach. His defense should have comforted Anya, but instead, a new fear took root. If even Varys' testimony wasn't enough to exonerate her, what would happen next? Would the Star demand she be removed from command? Would the fragile alliance shatter before it had truly begun? An investigation must be conducted, declared Lovren. Until its conclusion, all joint operations will be suspended. Captain Sharma will remain confined to the embassy complex. That's going too far, protested Admiral Costa. Without joint operations, our defense preparations are compromised by the possibility of further intelligence leaks. Lovren cut him off. This is not negotiable, Admiral. As the meeting dissolved into further arguments, Anya sat in stunned silence. She had sacrificed her mental privacy, possibly her long-term psychological health, all to secure this alliance. Now, because of what was clearly a frame-up, it might all be for nothing. That night, alone in her quarters, Anya made her decision. The alliance was more important than her position or reputation. If her continued presence was becoming an obstacle rather than an asset, there was only one honorable course of action. She would renounce the bond. The Confederation archives contained scant information on breaking a mind-meld bond, but they suggested it was possible through a reversal ritual. The process was described as painful, potentially dangerous to both participants, and requiring mutual consent. But if it would salvage the alliance and remove the focus from her supposed betrayal, Anya was willing to take the risk. She drafted a formal statement announcing her intention to step down as Earth's representative and submit to the bond-breaking ritual. It would mean the end of her career, possibly worse if the psychic separation caused permanent damage. But billions of lives outweighed her own concerns. Just as she was preparing to transmit the statement, her door chimed. Through the bond, she felt an unmistakable presence. Varys, radiating an intensity of emotion she had never sensed from him before. The door slid open to reveal the Star Commander, his normally perfect posture rigid with tension. Human, he said, dispensing with her rank and name in a way that emphasized the alienness of their relationship. Don't back out now. You agreed to bond in front of the council. Anya blinked in surprise. How did you? Your resolve, your resignation, your intent to sacrifice. Varys stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. They pulsed through the bond like emergency beacons. Then you know why I'm doing this, Anya said, gesturing to the drafted statement on her console. The alliance is more important than either of us. If my stepping aside helps preserve it, it will not. Varys' interruption was sharp, almost angry. It will be interpreted as an admission of guilt, a confirmation of human unreliability. The precise outcome our enemies desire. Our enemies? The leak was engineered, Captain. A careful examination of the network logs reveals authentication protocols that were artificially generated to match your credentials. This was not carelessness. It was sabotage. Hope flared briefly in Anya's chest, then faded. Even so, the damage is done. The Star Counselors clearly don't trust me. They're politicians, Varys said dismissively. Their trust is irrelevant. The bond between us, that is what matters. That is what guarantees the alliance. A bond I've been nothing but uncomfortable with since it formed, Anya admitted. You feel it. Every day, you feel my fear, my resentment. Yes. Varys' voice softened slightly. Your hesitation, your fear, is not betrayal. What is it then? Tell me the truth behind that fear. The directness of the question caught Anya off guard. For weeks, she had maintained a diplomat's facade, never fully articulating the depth of her misgivings, even to herself. But something in Varys' tone, in the earnest inquiry radiating through their bond, broke through her reserve. "I'm afraid of losing myself," she confessed, the words tumbling out. "Of being absorbed, assimilated. Of waking up one day and finding that Anya Sharma doesn't exist anymore. Just some hybrid consciousness, part human, part Thar, belonging nowhere and to no one." Varys was silent for a long moment. Then, in a gesture completely unprecedented in their interactions, he sat down beside her on the edge of her bed. "The Thar have a concept," he said slowly, "called tilakren. The closest human translation might be resonant harmony. It describes what happens when two distinct musical notes are played together. They do not become a single note. They remain separate, distinct. But together, they create something greater than either could alone. This is the true nature of the bond." He turned to face her fully. "I do not wish to absorb your consciousness, Captain. Your distinctiveness, your courage, your adaptability, your emotional intuition. These are valuable precisely because they are different from my own qualities. A bond between identical minds would be pointless. It is our differences that give the bond its strength." "But I feel you in my head constantly," Anya said. "How can I know where I end and you begin?" "With practice. With time." For the first time, a hint of wry humor colored his voice. "Do you think this experience is not strange for me as well? To suddenly perceive emotions with an intensity Thar rarely experience? To feel your human passions bleeding through my disciplined thoughts? It is disorienting." The admission of vulnerability, however slight, shifted something in Anya's perception. Through the bond, she sensed a complex tangle of emotions from Varys, determination, concern, and beneath it all, a familiar strain of uncertainty that mirrored her. "Own, you're afraid too," she realized aloud. "Caution is reasonable when navigating unknown territory," he replied, not quite a denial. "This bond is unprecedented between our species. Neither of us can predict its full implications. But breaking it now would be both dangerous and wasteful." "Wasteful?" "We have endured the difficult formation phase. To abandon the bond now, before realizing its potential benefits, would mean we suffered for nothing." He met her gaze steadily. "And I do not believe in purposeless suffering." Anya considered his words. The bond had been formed for a reason, to create an unbreakable alliance against an existential threat. If she ran from it now, what message would that send? That humans couldn't be trusted to keep their word when things became difficult? "What about the leak investigation?" she asked finally. "I have initiated my own inquiry, bypassing the counselors. If we can identify the true culprits, your name will be cleared." Varys stood. "But first, we must ensure you do not take any precipitous action." He gestured her unfinished statement. After a moment's hesitation, Anya deleted it. "I won't break the bond," she said. "Not yet, anyway. But we need to find who framed me, and quickly." "Agreed." Varys moved toward the door, then paused. "The meditation techniques I mentioned, perhaps we should begin them tonight. They may help you establish better mental boundaries within the bond." It was another concession, another small step toward genuine cooperation. "I like that," Anya said. And through the bond, she felt a flicker of what might almost have been satisfaction from the Star Commander. The investigation into the security breach progressed slowly but steadily. Using Varys' Star authority and Anya's human insights, they traced the falsified credentials through the Confederation network, gradually narrowing down the possible sources. Meanwhile, joint military exercises resumed cautiously, with Anya still under nominal supervision, but allowed to perform her duties. 3 days before the ritual to formalize the alliance was scheduled to take place before the full council, they found their proof. The leaked information had been planted by agents of the Galaxy Consortium, using specialized slicing protocols to mimic Anya's access patterns. More damning still, they uncovered evidence of a larger plot. The Consortium had secretly been feeding intelligence to the Hekari for months, hoping to weaken both Earth and the star enough that the merchant worlds could emerge as the dominant power in the aftermath. Armed with this evidence, Anya and Varys confronted the Confederation Security Council. The revelations caused an uproar, with the Galaxy representatives vehemently denying the accusations, even as their own encrypted communications were displayed for all to see. "This proves nothing," the lead Galaxy delegate hissed. "These documents could easily have been fabricated, and even if some elements of our consortium have engaged in questionable practices, that doesn't exonerate Captain Sharma. The bond between us confirms her innocence," Varys stated firmly, "a fact I have maintained from the beginning. A bond that many believe was flawed from its inception," countered the Galaxy. "Perhaps humans are simply incompatible with the ritual. Perhaps their minds are too malleable to form a proper connection." Anya felt a surge of anger through the bond. Not her own, but Varys's, tightly controlled but unmistakable. "You question the efficacy of an ancient star ritual?" he asked, his voice dangerously soft. "Based on what evidence?" "Based on the evidence before us," the Galaxy replied smoothly. "If the bond worked as intended, there would be no question of Captain Sharma's loyalties. Yet here we are, debating precisely that. Perhaps the ritual should be performed again, with a different human representative. Someone less compromised. It was a transparent attempt to dissolve the alliance, to force a restart of the laborious diplomatic process, while the Hekari continued their advance. But Anya could see that some of the council members were considering it. "There is one way to demonstrate the bond's effectiveness beyond any doubt," Varys said suddenly. All eyes turned to him. "The complete communion," he continued. "A deeper manifestation of the bond, typically performed only between Thar who have been bonded for years. It would leave no question as to Captain Sharma's intentions or the bond's integrity." A murmur swept through the chamber. Even the Thar counselors looked shocked. "Commander Varys," said Vren cautiously, "such a communion has never been attempted with a non-Thar. The psychic strain could be severe." "I'm aware of the risks," Varys replied. "I accept them." "As do I," Anya added quickly, though in truth, she had no idea what this complete communion entailed. Through the bond, she sensed Varys' surprise at her ready agreement, followed by a pulse of what felt almost like admiration. "Very well," the council president said gravely. "If both representatives are willing, the complete communion will be performed immediately, here, before the council. If successful, it should dispel any lingering doubts about the alliance's foundation." As preparations began, Varys drew Anya aside. "You agreed without knowing what you were agreeing to," he said quietly. "That was either very brave or very foolish. I trust you wouldn't have suggested it if you thought it would harm me," Anya replied, surprised to realize she meant it. Somewhere in the past weeks, amid all her fears and doubts, a fragile trust had begun to take root. "The complete communion is intense," Varys explained. "It temporarily dissolves the barriers between bonded minds. For a brief period, we will experience each other's consciousness directly. Memories, thoughts, the essence of who we are. Nothing will be hidden." Anya swallowed hard. "Everything? Every memory, every thought?" "Not every memory. Only those most central to our identities. But those will be experienced with full emotional context." His silver eyes held a warning. "It will be overwhelming, possibly painful, and what is seen cannot be unseen." Fear clutched at Anya's heart, but she straightened her shoulders. "If it clears my name and secures the alliance, I'll do it. Your courage continues to surprise me, Captain Sharma." Something new flickered through the bond, respect tinged with concern. "Remember your meditation training. It may help you maintain your sense of self during the process." The council chamber had been cleared of all but essential personnel. In the center, a more elaborate version of the crystal used in their initial bonding had been placed. This one pulsed with internal light, shifting through colors and hypnotic patterns. Anya and Varys knelt on opposite sides of the crystal, facing each other across its luminous surface. "Place your hands on the communion crystal," instructed an elderly Thar ritual master who had been hastily summoned. "Focus on the bond between you." Allow it to expand, to deepen. Do not resist what comes. Anya took a deep breath and placed her hands on the crystal. Opposite her, Varys did the same. Their eyes met over the pulsing light, and for an instant, Anya felt a powerful surge of reassurance through their bond. Then the crystal flared blindingly bright, and the world dissolved. She was no longer in the council chamber. She was no longer Anya Sharma. She was a young star child, standing in a stark training hall, muscles trembling with exhaustion as her combat instructor demanded one more perfect form. Failure meant no food until morning. Success meant a brief nod of approval, more precious than any praise. She was an adolescent Kaelin, watching her clutch sister die from a training accident that could have been prevented if only the safety protocols had been less rigid. The grief was contained, channeled into a private ritual of remembrance that no one else ever witnessed. She was a newly commissioned officer, standing proudly as her ancestral battle crest was affixed to her uniform. Generations of Varys warriors looking down from carved monuments, their expectations a weight heavier than any armor. The scenes shifted, accelerated. Battles, victories, losses that cut deeper than any wound. The crushing responsibility of command. The isolation of leadership. Principles upheld at personal cost. Honor maintained even when no one would know of its compromise. And through it all, a deep, abiding love for her people. A willingness to sacrifice everything for the Thar, not out of blind nationalism, but from a profound understanding of their culture's virtues alongside its flaws. Then the perspective shifted. He was no longer Kaelin Varys. He was a small human girl, hiding in a closet while her parents screamed at each other outside, pressing hands over ears that couldn't block the sound, learning that emotions were dangerous, explosive things that hurt everyone nearby. He was teenage Anya, watching Earth's first contact with alien life on vidscreens, feeling a desperate longing to escape the confines of one small planet, to see what lay beyond the stars. He was Cadet Sharma, excelling in tactical simulations but struggling with the rigid hierarchy of command, always questioning, always seeking better solutions than the approved doctrine provided. The scenes cascaded. The joy of her first deep space assignment. The hollow ache of watching friends die in early skirmishes with the Hekari. The weight of increasingly impossible choices. The loneliness of command that mirrored his own, yet was expressed so differently. Through quiet tears in private quarters, through fierce loyalty to those under her command, through a stubborn determination that refused to accept failure as an option. And beneath it all, the same driving force he recognized in himself, duty, not blind obedience, but a thoughtful commitment to protect what mattered, to serve a purpose greater than herself. Then, abruptly, they were both back in their own minds, yet still connected more deeply than before. The crystal between them had dimmed to a soft glow. Anya gasped for breath, tears streaming unchecked down her face. Across from her, Varys' normally impassive features showed visible shock, his silver eyes wide with what might have been wonder. "It is done," announced the ritual master, his voice seeming to come from a great distance. "The complete communion has been achieved." The council chamber remained utterly silent. No one had expected success, certainly not such profound success that the psychic energy had been palpable even to non-participants. Some witnesses later claimed they had seen a visible aurora of blue-violet light surrounding the bonded pair at the ritual's peak. Anya struggled to reorient herself. She felt hollowed out, scoured clean, yet paradoxically more complete than she had ever been. The presence of Varys in her mind was no longer a foreign intrusion, but a harmonious counterpoint, exactly as he had described. Two distinct notes creating something greater together than either could alone. "Well," demanded the Galaxy representative, breaking the reverent silence. "What verdict does this communion offer? Is a human trustworthy or not?" Varys rose smoothly to his feet, then extended a hand to help Anya stand, a human gesture he had never used before. "Captain Sharma's loyalty to her people and to our alliance is beyond question," he stated, voice ringing with certainty. "She bears no responsibility for the security breach. Indeed, her commitment to honor rivals any Star Warriors. This is meaningless theater, the Galaxy sneered. You would say anything to maintain. Silence. The word came from Counselor Vran, with such authority that the Galaxy representative physically recoiled. I have witnessed enough. The complete communion cannot be faked or manipulated. Its successful completion between Commander Varys and Captain Sharma validates both their bond and the alliance it represents. Furthermore, added the Council President, the evidence presented regarding Galaxy involvement in intelligence leaks to the Hecari is compelling enough to warrant a formal investigation. This council session is adjourned while security personnel escort the Galaxy delegation to containment chambers for questioning. As the chamber erupted into chaotic activity, with security officers moving toward the now protesting Galaxy representatives, Anya turned to Varys. That was... She struggled to find words adequate to describe the experience. Yes, he agreed simply, understanding perfectly through their enhanced bond. I never imagined. She shook her head, overwhelmed by the lingering impressions of his lifetime of memories, still sorting themselves within her consciousness. Your sister. I'm so sorry. Varys stiffened slightly, then relaxed. An old wound, as are many of yours. His eyes held hers with new understanding. Your parents. Also an old wound. Anya managed a small smile. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Both trained to contain our emotions, just in completely different ways. Perhaps that is why the bond took so well, despite our different species. A hint of something almost like humor colored his voice. We are both. What is your human expression? Control freaks? Anya laughed, the sound startling in the still tense atmosphere of the council chamber. Several nearby delegates looked at them in surprise. I don't think I've ever heard Isthar use that phrase before. There will be many firsts, I suspect, as our bond continues to mature. Varys offered his arm in a formal escort gesture. Kulme, we have much work to do before the Hecari arrive, and I believe we will now do it much more effectively together. Anya took his arm, feeling the solid strength beneath the ceremonial armor. Through the bond, she sensed his newfound respect for her, layered with complex emotions that would take time to fully understand. But time was something they now had, thanks to the alliance they had secured. As they left the chamber side by side, Anya realized that her fear of losing herself had been misplaced. The bond hadn't diminished her identity. It had expanded it, adding new perspectives while leaving her core self intact. She was still Anya Sharma, but now she carried within her a deeper understanding of an alien culture, an alien mind, an alien heart that perhaps wasn't so alien after all. And somewhere in that understanding, she found not just acceptance of their bond, but the first tentative sparks of gratitude for it. The formal ratification of the Earth-Zethar alliance took place 3 days later, in a ceremony broadcast throughout Confederation space. The Galaxy Consortium representatives had been replaced after extensive. Evidence of their collusion with the Hecari was uncovered. Several merchant worlds had withdrawn from the Consortium in shock, realigning themselves with the new alliance. Military preparations accelerated. Star battle fleets coordinated with Earth Defense Forces in unprecedented joint exercises. Intelligence was shared freely, tactical doctrines merged and refined. And at the center of it all stood Anya and Varys, their bond serving as the living bridge between two formerly distant cultures. The Hecari fleet has altered course, Anya announced, entering Varys' command center with a datapad. They're moving to engage the Proxima Centauri outpost earlier than expected. Varys nodded, already aware through their bond that she brought urgent news. They sense our alliance strengthening. They move to strike before our coordination is complete. But they're too late, Anya said, a fierce grin lighting her features. The joint fleet is ready. Admiral Costa has authorized full deployment, as has the Star High Command. Varys turned to the holographic tactical display. We intercept them here, in the Tyrannies Nebula. The magnetic properties will disrupt their long-range sensors, allowing our stealth squadrons to approach undetected. Anya studied the display, her tactical mind merging with his in a seamless assessment. Since the complete communion, their ability to work together had transcended conventional military cooperation. They didn't need to explain their thoughts in detail. Core concepts transferred through the bond, creating an operational synergy that had astonished their respective command staffs. The fighter wings will need to maintain tight formation through these debris fields, she noted, highlighting a section of the nebula. The Heckery point defense systems can track individual targets effectively, but get confused by overlapping signatures. A weakness we observed in the Cygnus engagement, Varys agreed. Your pilots are better suited to such close formation flying than ours. We will assign Star heavy cruisers to provide covering fire from these positions instead. They continued refining the battle plan, each contributing their species' unique tactical perspectives, creating a hybrid approach that neither Earth nor Star strategists would have developed independently. When they presented the finalized plan to the Joint Command Staff, Admiral Costa shook his head in amazement. I've never seen operational planning this seamless, he commented. Whatever doubts anyone had about this bond, I think they're thoroughly answered now. Days turned into weeks as the Alliance forces moved into position. Anya and Varys spent almost every waking hour together, their bond continuing to deepen and evolve. What had begun as an uncomfortable mental intrusion had transformed into a partnership unlike anything either had experienced before. It wasn't always smooth sailing. Cultural differences still caused occasional friction. Anya's human expressiveness sometimes overwhelmed Varys' Star Reserve. His rigidity sometimes frustrated her adaptable nature. But increasingly, they found these differences complementary rather than contradictory. You're doing it again, Anya said one evening, as they sat in her quarters reviewing tactical simulations. That thing where you mentally recite the Star code of battle honor to avoid telling me you think my idea is completely stupid. Varys looked up, one crystalline eyebrow ridge raised. The code helps maintain mental discipline. It also helps you avoid saying what you're actually thinking, she countered with a knowing smile. I can feel you cycling through the third precept right now. Wisdom comes from considering all paths before dismissing any, Varys quoted. It is a valuable principle. So, sometimes you have to tell your bond partner their approach is fundamentally flawed, Anya replied dryly. Look, we don't have to waste time on diplomatic niceties. Not with each other. Not anymore. Varys set down his data pad, a hint of amusement filtering through the bond. Very well. Your proposal to divide our forces at the nebula boundary is tactically unsound and contradicts 3 centuries of established Star fleet doctrine. See? Was that so hard? Anya grinned. Now tell me why so I can explain why you're wrong. These discussions, once formal and tense, had taken on an almost playful quality. They argued vigorously, challenged each other's assumptions, and ultimately arrived at solutions neither would have considered alone. Their respective staffs had learned to leave them to these debates, recognizing that the apparent conflict was actually a highly effective problem-solving method. More surprising were the quiet moments between strategic sessions. They had begun sharing meals together, exchanging stories about their home worlds, finding unexpected common ground in their different life experiences. Anya introduced Varys to Earth literature and music. He taught her Star meditation techniques and philosophy. One night, after a particularly grueling planning session, they sat in the observation lounge overlooking the Confederation capital skyline. The megalopolis sparkled with lights of 1,000 different species designs, a testament to cooperation across differences. Do you regret it? Anya asked suddenly. The bond, I mean. Varys considered the question with characteristic thoroughness. No, he said finally. Though had you asked me immediately after the ritual, my answer might have been different. You were as terrified as I was, Anya realized. You just hit it better. Star do not experience terror, he said with dignified affront, though a pulse of wry acknowledgement came through the bond. Merely significant concern. Anya laughed. Significant concern. Right. She leaned back in her chair, studying his profile against the city lights. You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm starting to appreciate this bond. Not just for the tactical advantages, but for itself. Varys turned to face her. Explain. I've never been understood like this before, she said simply. Not by anyone. No matter how well you know someone, there's always translation required. Putting feelings into words, explaining context, being misinterpreted. But with you, she gestured between them. There's none of that. You just know. As you know me, Varys nodded. It is. Efficient. Efficient. Anya repeated with a smile. Such a romantic way to put it. A flicker of confusion passed through the bond. Romantic. Anya felt her cheeks warm. Figure of speech. I didn't mean. But of course, the bond transmitted her embarrassment, along with the complex emotions beneath it. Emotions she'd been carefully not examining too closely as they developed over the past weeks. Varys went very still, his silver eyes widening slightly as he processed what he was sensing from her. I see, he said finally. No, you don't, Anya said quickly. It's just a human expression. Forget I said anything. Captain Sharma, Varys said with formal precision. You forget that emotional truth cannot be concealed between us. Not anymore. Anya stood abruptly, moving to the window to put some distance between them. Fine. Yes. I'm experiencing complications, emotional complications. But it's just a natural response to the bond and our constant proximity. It doesn't have to change anything. She sensed him rising, moving to stand beside her at the window. And if I told you these complications were not entirely one-sided? Anya's breath caught. Through the bond, she felt a new emotion from Varys, one he had kept carefully controlled until now. Warm, complex, a bit uncertain, but unmistakable in its direction. That would be. She began, then stopped, unsure how to continue. Unexpected, he suggested. Inappropriate? Cross-species attachments are not unknown in the Confederation, though they are uncommon. I was going to say interesting, Anya replied, turning to face him, and possibly very complicated, given our official positions. We specialize in complicated, Captain Sharma. A small smile touched his lips. Or may I call you Anya, in private contexts? The formal request, so characteristic of his careful nature, made her smile in return. I think we're well past military protocols at this point, Kaelin. It was the first time she had used his given name. Through the bond, she felt how it affected him. Pleasure, mingled with a sense of crossing an important threshold. Indeed we are, he agreed, though what lies beyond those protocols remains to be discovered. I suppose we'll figure it out together, Anya said. Like everything else. A comfortable silence fell between them as they turned back to the view, standing close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Through the bond, emotions too complex for words flowed back and forth, a communion deeper than either had imagined possible when they first reluctantly placed their hands on the resonance crystal. The alert came at dawn, piercing through their meditation session with urgent priority. The Hekari fleet had arrived at the edge of the Tyrannies Nebula earlier than even their revised estimates had predicted. They've brought more dreadnoughts than our intelligence suggested, Anya noted grimly as they studied the incoming data in the command center. And these energy signatures, they've upgraded their weapons systems. Varys nodded, already communicating tactical adjustments through their bond. The core strategy remains viable, but we will need to reinforce the flanking positions here and here. Admiral Costa and his Thar High Command representatives received their updated recommendations with approval. The joint fleet moved into final position, tension mounting as the moment of engagement approached. We should be out there with them, Anya said, frustration evident as they monitored communications from the secure command center. Both had been ordered to remain at headquarters. Their bond made them too valuable as strategic coordinators to risk in direct combat. Our presence serves the greater purpose here, Varys reminded her, though she could feel his own warrior instincts straining against the constraint. The battle began with a ferocity that exceeded even their worst projections. The Hekari struck with coordinated precision, targeting the perceived weaknesses in the alliance formation. But those weaknesses were deliberate, calculated sacrifices in a larger strategic design that the enemy could not perceive. Hour after hour, the engagement evolved exactly as Anya and Varys had predicted in their simulations. The Star heavy cruisers held the center, while Earth's more maneuverable vessels executed complex flanking maneuvers. The Hecate, initially advancing confidently, found themselves gradually encircled, their tactical options diminishing with each passing hour. "It's working," Admiral Costa breathed, watching the strategic display with something like awe. "By all the stars, it's actually working." And then, without warning, disaster struck. A previously undetected Hecate vessel emerged from the densest part of the nebula, directly behind the Star command ship. Before defensive systems could respond, it launched a barrage of energy weapons. The Star flagship's shields collapsed. Secondary explosions cascaded through its hull. Through the bond, Anya felt a sudden, searing pain, not physical but psychic. Varys staggered beside her, gripping the edge of the tactical console. "The High Commander," he gasped. "My clutch brother." He was aboard the flagship. The loss of a family member would be devastating to anyone. But for Isthar, bound by complex familial loyalties and psychic connections, even beyond their direct bonds, it was crippling. Anya felt Varys' consciousness fracturing under the shock, his disciplined mind suddenly chaotic with grief and rage. Without thinking, she reached for his hand, gripping it tightly. "Kalen, focus on me, on our bond." His silver eyes, usually so clear, had clouded to a stormy gray. "I must." Ritual of passage. His spirit. Later, Anya said firmly, pouring all her strength through their connection. "Right now, our forces need us. Your brother needs us to finish what he started." She felt him struggling, Star grief rituals warring with military duty. Then, gradually, his mind steadied, anchoring itself to their bond. He straightened, though his hand remained clasped in hers. "The Hecate will exploit the command disruption," he said, voice rough but controlled. "We must compensate immediately." Together, they turned back to the tactical display, minds merging even more completely than before. Anya shared her human capacity for processing grief alongside action, while Varys contributed his star ability to channel emotion into focused purpose. New orders flowed from the command center. The Alliance forces, briefly staggered by the loss of the Star flagship, regrouped with astonishing speed. The battle plan adapted, evolved, incorporated the new reality without losing its fundamental structure. 3 hours later, it was over. The Hecate fleet, caught in the carefully constructed trap and unable to adapt to the Alliance's unprecedented coordination, broke formation and retreated. For dreadnoughts, and 12 support vessels have been destroyed or captured. The rest fled into deep space. Their advance halted for the first time since the conflict began. The victory came at a cost. 7 Earth vessels lost, 5-star ships severely damaged or destroyed, including the flagship. But the strategic gain was immeasurable. The Alliance had proven itself. The Hecate were no longer an unstoppable force. In the aftermath, as celebration mixed with mourning throughout the Confederation, Anya stood beside Varys during the Star ritual for fallen warriors. She felt his grief through their bond, but also his resilience, his determination to honor the sacrifice by continuing the fight. When the formal ceremonies ended, they retreated to a quiet chamber in the Star embassy. Varys performed a more personal ritual for his brother, a meditation involving crystalline memento artifacts that glowed with stored memories. Anya sat with him in respectful silence, offering her presence without intrusion. "Thank you," he said finally, as the crystals dimmed. "Your strength today, it was unexpected." "Not my strength," Anya corrected gently. "Ours. The bond." "Yes." He looked at her with new understanding. "I have experienced loss before. Never has the burden been so shared." "That's what humans do," Anya said. "We carry each other's burdens when they're too heavy to bear alone." "Star taught to carry all weights without assistance," Varys replied. "It is considered the warrior's path." "And how's that working out for you?" Anya asked with gentle irony. A small smile touched his lips. "Perhaps our cultures have things to teach each other after all." "I think that was the point," Anya said, reaching for his hand. "Not just military alliance. Understanding. Growth." Through their bond, warmth flowed between them, stronger than before. The shared victory, the shared loss, had transformed their connection yet again, deepening it, enriching it with new dimensions of trust and mutual support. This bond, Vari said softly, is not what I expected when I proposed it before the council, nor what I feared when I agreed to it, Anya admitted. It's becoming something else entirely. And what would you call this something else? He asked, his silver eyes holding hers. Anya thought about their journey, from reluctant diplomatic pawns to efficient military partners to whatever they were becoming now. Friends, confidants, perhaps more. I'm not sure there's a word for it in either of our languages, she said finally. We might have to invent one. Varys considered this with characteristic thoroughness. The Star have a term, Kvaran, for those who have faced death together and emerged with unified purpose. It is sacred rare. I like that, Anya smiled. Kvaran, partners in survival. And in what comes after survival, Varys added, a new emotion coloring his voice as he turned to face her fully. If you are willing. Through their bond, his meaning was clear. This was no longer just about duty or alliance or even friendship. It was an invitation to explore the deepening personal connection between them, a connection neither had anticipated but both now recognized as precious. I'm willing, Anya said simply, meeting his gaze without reservation. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. As she spoke, she felt their bond shift again, harmonizing at a deeper level than ever before. What had begun as a reluctant sacrifice for the sake of their peoples had transformed into something neither could have imagined, a partnership that transcended species, transcended duty, transcended fear. The mind meld, once a burden to be endured, had become a gift to be cherished. And as they sat together in the quiet chamber, planning for both war and peace, Anya realized that she wouldn't break their bond now, even if she could. Some connections, once formed, were meant to last forever. In the years that followed, the legend of the human and star who bonded to save the Confederation grew throughout the galaxies. Their unprecedented union became the foundation for a new era of understanding between their peoples. What began as military necessity blossomed into cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, and eventually, when the Hekari threat was finally neutralized, a lasting peace. And at the center of it all remained Anya and Kaelin, their bond a living testament to what could be achieved when two distinct minds chose harmony over discord, unity over division, love over fear. They never did break the bond. They never wanted to.